We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Mitch. Mitch has some questions about Audyssey microphone placement. He got the new Audyssey editor app, and it gives recommendations for microphone placement, including the advice that all microphone positions should be within the left and right boundaries created by the front, left, and right speakers, i.e. the microphone should be somewhere between the left and right front speakers for all measurements. That kind of totally makes sense, but go on. And that all measurement positions should be within 2 feet of the first measurement position. All right, we recently linked to a YouTube tutorial from AV Forums. Their advice was very similar, but with the additional tip that at least 1 foot of free air, or a bubble, as Rob called it, should be around the microphone no matter what. So what happens when your primary seat isn't exactly dead center? Where he sits is slightly offset to the right. Should that still be measurement position number 1, or should he sit perfectly center? Or should he perfectly center the mic between his front, left, and right speakers, even though that isn't actually where he sits? That's a good question.
It is a very good question.
Now, I believe, didn't we ask Chris Caracas guy about this? Didn't we ask him about this?
I don't remember if this was a specific question that was asked.
But I thought it kind of came
recall.
up. I don't remember what he said. So I'm going to go with what I do. Okay. So he sits, and this is not unlike where I sit.
Right.
I sit just a little bit. So, like, if you're looking, are you showing the image?
I am.
The image is just like his cup holder on his left is just a little bit past the center line. So, like, his left knee is probably dead center on the center channel.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's his seat. So he's sitting a little bit to the right of where
yeah, just slightly. I mean, he's not way over to the right by any means. He's just a little off center, a little bit to the right.
So Audyssey, if you look at their images for what they do, they have a 4-seater couch, and they're saying the first position should be dead center of the couch.
Even though that isn't really a seat.
It's
like
not a seat.
Splitting the 2 seats of a 4-seater
You're going to sit
couch.
in the crack, and no sane person sits on the crack on purpose. No sane person does that. So what does this mean? I'll be honest. I'll tell you what I do. I center the microphone in the space. And then I measure around the microphone, sort of kind of how they recommend. But I may take an additional measurement or 2 closer to where I sit than closer to where other people sit. Mostly because I don't care about them, because I'm selfish, and no one else in my family really cares. I mean, my wife last night, we were watching Power Rangers. Got to remind me to talk about the elevation speakers. Watching Power Rangers. She sat on the back right. She was sitting 2.5 to 3 feet behind the side surround speaker. Everything was happening in front of her. She didn't get up and say it sounded weird. Nope, never crossed her mind. So, I do it a little bit more to my side. Now, if you said I centered it on my seat because that's where I sit, I'd be like, that's cool. You can do that too. I wouldn't have any problem with that whatsoever. None.
So, I mean, the way that I come at this is as a logic problem as opposed to a where I sit problem. Because to me, position number 1 is what sets all of your speaker distances and levels.
Right.
And the notion is that if you're setting the distances, you're not really caring about where someone is actually sitting. You're caring about what should be the time alignment of all the speakers. Where should they all perfectly line up time-wise? And that ought to be dead center.
Yeah.
Now, if you sit way off center, then that doesn't totally make sense. Then it makes sense to put the measurement position somewhere a little bit closer to your seat.
This dude's like 8 inches away from dead center.
Maximum would be a foot off center, right?
So in his case, I think it's probably 6 of one, half dozen of another.
I would suggest dead centering the mic for position number 1, because position number 1 does not set all of your equalization. That's not what it does. That's what all the other measurement positions are for, is to get a spatial average so that it can make a good equalization that sounds fairly uniform, at least in this, 2-foot radius around position number 1, which should contain your primary seats, plural, right? That's the whole idea of the format. But position number 1 is setting your levels and distances. It should be, if it's not completely unreasonable for where you sit, dead center. And in your case, it isn't completely unreasonable. So I would put position number 1 dead center.
He says, does a 1-foot bubble recommendation mean that all... I didn't skip a question, did I? No, okay.
Nope.
That all the measurement positions after 1 should be at least 1 foot away from position 1. What's more important, that all of the additional positions be at least 1 foot away, or that be no further than 2 feet away? And would a cluster of closer measurements be better, or should they be spread out as spread out as possible within 2-foot radius of position number 1? I gotta be honest, I'm looking at their little recommendations here. That is not 2 feet, dude. I mean, the Audyssey's recommendations is not like you take a measurement that there's a couple behind, a couple in front that might be 2 feet. But I'm looking at are you showing this?
Yep.
The middle one, right? Measurement 2 and measurement 3 are not 2 feet away. Measurement 5, 4, and 6 are definitely not 2 feet away from measurement 1. So, I mean, I take it with a grain of salt. But Chris Kyriakakis, when we were... I'm so totally saying his name wrong, right? Kyriakakis? Kyriakakis. I'm pretty close. Yeah. Anyways, he's just like, just move it around. Just move it. Move it a couple of feet over here, move it a little bit over there, move it in front, move it up, move it down. I mean, you're trying to get a spatial average here.
But the main thing is that to not think of the microphone positions as seats. That's the thing to get away from. Because like in this particular case, he has seats that are over to the side.
Sure. You do not want to put that microphone over there.
Because some people are going to say, I have 4 seats. Shouldn't I put the microphone in each of those 4 seats, right? And which is a perfectly logical way of thinking. What the directions are trying to tell you is, no, you start with position number 1, that should be dead ahead center, and then the rest of your measurements should be within a 2-foot radius around that position. If you have some seat way over to the side of your room, don't put the microphone over there just because it's a seat. Right. Try to stay within this sort of, 4-foot wide bubble around position.
And if you look at that, the middle measurement from Audyssey recommendations, they are taking measurements in places that aren't seats.
That's correct.
And every single, well, actually, all of them really. 5, 7, and 8 all are outside of a seat. Yeah. Sometimes 4 and 6 are as well. Yeah. Sometimes 2 and 3 are. So, the idea here is that you're just trying to get a spatial average around there. Doesn't really matter for the seats because the sound's not going, oh, well, there's a seat here, so I have to
so I'm going to be special. Yeah.
Special for this. It's just air passing through. So you leave your chairs and everything where they're at, and then you take this kind of average around. That's exactly what Chris told us. Yeah. It's just take it all the way around there.
No, you know what works really well is you get a microphone stand with a boom arm.
Yeah.
You start with position number 1, then you put the stock of the microphone stand in position number 1, and you swing the boom around because then you just have that radius going around position number 1.
Can I just say that I'm extremely intimidated by the number of speakers these Audyssey recommendations have at the front.
I don't know what's going on there. Yeah,
what the hell is going on? There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minimum speakers up there. I'm not sure what those other little boxes are, but there's at least 7 speakers at the front of this room.
I guess that's the 5 screen speakers you might find at a theater plus 2 heights. Maybe that's what's going on.
No, there's 3. Right, so there's front, middle.
No, they're showing like left, center, right, front, left, right, wide speakers.
They got to be the wides. It's got to be wides.
You know what it is? It's Audyssey DSX. That's what they're showing.
And wides.
Heights and wides. That's what's going on there.
There's just a stupid number of speakers. All right, he says that if he starts with his actual primary seat and he follows Audyssey or the AV Forum's recommendations for positions 2 through 8, there's no actual seat directly to his right. And if he went the full 2 feet to the right, he'd be very close to going past the boundary created by the front right speaker. So how should he handle that situation? I mean, just like we said, just swing the arm. Dude.
Yeah, don't actually start in your primary seat. Start dead center, and then keep it within a 2-foot radius around that.
The instructions say that to have the microphone at ear height, but what if the seat reclines? So ear height is variable. What height is best? Yeah, so this is the thing that's is very, very interesting to me as well, because you want to keep that bubble, that 1-foot bubble, right? Mm-hmm. So but and Chris said you can lower the microphone down.
Mm-hmm.
You can lower it down. So you could actually take a measurement behind your seat, which would be behind your seat, but recline your seat and put the microphone 1 foot above where the back of the seat is.
Yeah, you could.
Where you're as it was reclined above the seat where your head would be, 1 foot above what your head, the actual thing. You could do that. I mean, but he said take height. I mean, you can usually do like 8 or 9 measurements with these things. Sometimes,
typically 8.
More.
That's what most.
So yeah, but what height is best? I think most of these measurements should all be taken at seated ear height.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Which is the recommendation.
You could take 1 or 2 that's lower or higher as well. He did say that. So
yep,
I mean, there's
absolutely.
no reason.
Yeah.
In the end, as long as you are taking multiple measurements around and you're not screwing it up too bad by having boundary reinforcement going on or that sort of thing, you're going to end up with a pretty good result. That's kind of what Chris said as well. As long as you're following the directions as best you can and not overthinking it. I mean, because remember, this is supposed to be the room. I mean, yeah, I don't think that it would be a complete disaster if you took your measurement microphone. You said, I already did Audyssey, and I made my seat be the center, and I did 2 feet all the way around it, but I made sure there was no boundary reinforcement. There's nothing in the way, but I centered it off 8 inches to the right instead of where I should have put it. I'd be like, whatever, dude. I mean, if you don't want to go through the hassle of doing it again, that's fine. But technically, you should put it straight smack in the center, and that's what I do. I mean, I put it smack in the center, which is kind of almost exactly how you have yours set up, and it's fine. It's fine. So should recliners be in their full upright position when you're measuring, or should they be reclined? Well, how do you normally listen? I guess, are you always reclined? Because I'm normally sitting. I just leave them up.
Yeah,
I would leave them up because most of the time they're going to be that way.
Yeah.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.